problem with the judiciary is you all don't communicate. Every time somebody wants to say something, you say, oh, our judgments speak for themselves, and then you don't say anything more. A 500-page submission that's put before a judge, is it okay to use AI to summarize that into 50 pages or 80 pages or 100 pages? AI tends to produce outcomes that look very reliable. The real danger is that you let your guard down, and that's a user problem. The way the courts have looked at it, we've developed sort of a traffic light model for thinking about how to incorporate AI, a red, amber, and green approach. And red obviously describes the areas where we will not, at the moment, even consider it. I think for now, anything that entails decision-making is out. Another area that it's probably a red at the moment, is providing predictions. Amber describes the areas where we will cautiously evaluate whether it is safe to deploy things like a tool to collate an argument or draft an argument for a layperson. And green describes the areas where we're more open to incorporating the use of AI. The main areas where we are currently using as judges, and I'm sure many of the judges use it, is in terms of things like legal research and accessing the databases and helping us to organize the database. And it's very useful, very reliable. And we're certainly not using it in terms of things like drafting judgments or stuff like that. An issue that's going to come up would be the use of AI to summarize some of the material that's put before us. So imagine, if you like, a 500-page submission that's put before a judge. Is it okay to use AI to summarize that into 50 pages or 80 pages or 100 pages? And we haven't signed off on that yet. And the danger with doing that is it creates a whole lot of satellite work, arguing over whether the summary is an accurate summary, whether it's a sufficient summary. There's a related concern, which is AI tends to produce outcomes that look very reliable. And the problem comes in when you're dealing with something that is almost foolproof. The real danger is that you let your guard down. And that's a user problem. We have to keep investing in building our knowledge, familiarity, and literacy, fluency in dealing with AI. It doesn't stop at the level of being able to provide effective prompts. It actually goes beyond that to having a good understanding of the limits of AI and what it can't do. In 2017 or 18, we had the Institute of Policy Studies come and talk to us. They chose to speak to us about the dangers of public trust in public institutions diminishing. One of the things they said was, a contributor to the problem with the judiciary is you all don't communicate. You don't, every time somebody wants to say something, you say, oh, our judgments speak for themselves, and then you don't say anything more. And I guess they were being polite, but one of the points they made is that sometimes the judgments don't speak for themselves because they're not very clear to average people. We made a decision that we were going to set up a comms function and also really look at a cultural reset in terms of thinking of the courts as a much more user-centric organization. A lot of people comment on decisions or court proceedings, and most of them do so with very little information. They haven't actually read the judgments. We now provide case summaries with all of our judgments. So people aren't willing to read a 20, 30, 50, 100-page judgment. They might be willing to read a 2, 3, 4, 5-page summary to get a sufficient understanding of what things are about. Has it worked? I think it's worked to some degree. Occasionally, when I go and look at the social media feeds, I think there's still a large number of people who comment without even having read the summaries. And they might have read a headline, and then based on the headline, they jump to various conclusions. There may be some people who do that, but I don't think it's widespread. And I think we reflect that in the kind of results we're seeing from our user surveys. We're confident, based on the user surveys that we have, that people leave the courts feeling generally that they've had a fair hearing. And that's centrally important to preserving and protecting trust in our institution. Public trust in the judiciary is fundamentally about the belief that the courts make their decisions based on principle, applying a fair process with integrity, and explaining their decisions. I think that's really the essential elements of what we're talking about. And over the last 4 or 5 years, we've been doing these surveys, and I think the answers they give us hints at a concern with sustainability, because of the significant number who say that they anticipate leaving practice within 3 years and leaving the profession altogether within 3 or 5 years. The first thing is, I think young graduates today have a very wide range of career choices. We've got a very, very vibrant legal scene. The second factor which I think has driven this is the growing complexity of work. If you think of the evidence in a typical case, today with emails and almost every single communication, the volume of evidence that you see has just shot up. An additional factor that I think adds to this is something that I have referred to as something of a generation gap. There's a range of different groups of people, each of whom have slightly different perspectives. I think if we're not honest and candid and open in talking about this, we are going to overlook certain difficulties that can manifest. AI is a huge concern for them. It's, on the one hand, tremendously helpful. On the other hand, they do worry, when they hear that it may be displacing them or taking away their training opportunities, taking away their jobs. They get very worried. And many young people have real conversations about whether they have a future in the law. And we have to address that for them. The problem of sustainability comes up because if people are leaving the profession because they find that the push factors are too strong, the concern I have is that down the road, we're not going to have enough lawyers to operate at the kind of level we need them to operate to fulfill our aspirations for Singapore and our aspirations for the legal profession and the legal system to be strong enough to support those national aspirations. The particular point that I was interested in was to explore how AI can help us make justice, in a sense, more accessible to lay users. And with that in mind, we focus specifically on the small claims tribunals. For most people in the small claims tribunals, when they're there, it makes a real difference. It makes a real difference to their lives. And if they have to incur a significant portion of that in legal costs, it's effectively a denial of access for them. That's why a deliberate choice was made for many of our tribunals to ensure that they're accessed by lay people without the benefit of lawyers appearing. First two phases that we've worked with them on and that is already available to people are in translation of documents and in summarizing of documents. But the summarization has been especially helpful in terms of taking the mass of documents and reducing it to a very manageable volume, and they can understand what the documents are, they can understand what the issues are. I think we've also done it at a geographic level in some respects. And the team organized a walk for me. They said, come, we want to show you what a self-represented person goes through if they have to file a bankruptcy petition. And it was incredible. You have to go to the ground floor, one office, then they require you to get something certified. You have to go to the third floor to another office. Then they require something else. You have to go somewhere else. And it was like going here and there. And can you imagine having to do that when you're under the stress of being faced with bankruptcy and you're trying to sort it out? So we changed all that, located everything in one place with the appropriate guides to help people through the process. That's access to justice.